July 2019. You ready? Let's roll. Hey guys, is everybody ready? Nah, we ain't getting anywhere. It's been sitting there collecting dust for way too long now. It's time to continue the build. So that was filmed in March of 2020, as the subtitle might suggest. We bought this car a couple of years ago to do a drift build, with the intention of entering it into the Russian drift series. Yes, Russia does have a drift series. I mean, what country doesn't nowadays? Now, back in 2019, we got this car in the form of a rolling shell and a bunch of separate parts. And since then, we've been piecing all of it together, which is what this video is about. So now you guys know that it was a real Supra that you would have seen in the background of some of our older videos. You know what it's for, and with that, hopefully you enjoy the video, while I get back to work on the voiceover. Hey guys, I should probably start this video by saying that it has been over 18 months since we began filming this episode, and all this time we've been building up the Supra. Now allow me to do a quick recap. After fixing the shell, respraying it and restoring the plastic, the next step was to sort the engine and the suspension, as well as tend to a few smaller tasks on top of that. Now, the car did not come with a motor, but they did give us an assortment of parts when they sold us the car. The cornerstone of this build was an engine block from a 2UZ motor with a 4.7-liter capacity. That's the V8 they used in the Toyota Land Cruiser. And that was pretty much the plan from the very beginning, to build up this V8 of almost 5 liters. Now, they actually gave us a bunch of useful stuff with the car, including a set of forged pistons and heavy-duty conrods, and a bunch of minor bits. Now, given we had the necessary parts, we decided to go turbo with this engine. Now, I do have to mention that the main thing preventing us from making any progress was the sheer cost of a build like this. Cough up some cash? Yeah, especially when you're dressed like this. But, well, it is what it is. And there's your answer to why this video has been 18 months in the making. Fellas, I'd just like to say thank you for your support and for your kind words. I'm well now and everything's good. Now you yourselves take care, and make sure to take all of the necessary precautions given the situation we're in. Now, the latest addition to our online shop are these lovely face masks that'll help keep you safe from all sorts of nasty infections. Now, at the moment it's August and the rainy autumn season is right around the corner, meaning it's time to buy some warm clothing. We're offering you guys these fantastic hoodies from our shop, and as of recently we've also got these awesome vests for sale. On top of that, we've got a bunch of other stuff, and we're always adding something new to the product line. For example, not too long ago we began to offer these nifty lighters and air fresheners, so go ahead and give our online shop a visit. Get yourself some G54 merch, and when using the code from the video description, you can buy some stuff at a good discount. The first problem we ran into was the need to purchase a bunch of additional parts. It's a good thing we at least had the engine block. That we measured and tidied up. The crankshaft we had reground, plus we threw in a spline-driven oil pump with a bit of extra capacity. Now at that point the engine block preparations were pretty much complete, or at least nearing completion. The pistons that came with the car we also had reground to get the compression ratio to where we wanted it. After that we put the short block assembly together, maintaining the clearances that were recommended by the companies that manufactured the pistons, rods, bearings, and so on. The cylinder heads are from a 1UZ FE, which is the 4-liter version of this motor. And it took quite a while for us to find a set of used heads in good condition. Of course, we rebuilt the heads, adjusted the valves, all of the rubber bits, the seals and all of that we decided to use new. We went with the OEM parts that Toyota itself used at the factory. The gearbox we already had, it's from a Nissan 350Z, which is designated as the CD9 from the factory. It was in working condition, or at least so we were told, so yeah, we threw that on, but the clutch we had to replace. The one that came with the car was in pretty bad shape. It had seen quite a bit of abuse from the looks of it. It didn't look very good, so in the end we pieced together a single set out of two, one that should be able to do its thing. We're running a ceramic clutch from Ogura Racing in this car, which should be good for at least 500 horsepower. Yeah, it'll probably hold up. Now, the UZ motor is a great fit for this engine bay. In stock form, the car came with an inline-6, as we all know, but this engine is a mere 4 cylinders long, so there's plenty of space left in the bay. That'll definitely be a benefit once we start plumbing everything up, installing a turbo, and all of that other stuff. January 2021. Now, it has been a good half a year since we assembled the short block. We've made it through the pandemic, 2020 is behind us, and very soon it'll be the spring of 2021. We've got our fingers crossed and are really hoping that motorsport makes a comeback, and that we're able to take this Supra out to have some fun. Now we're going to clean the snow off and continue with the build. In this episode, we are definitely gonna start this thing. As for the intake, well, we didn't have any parts for it. We had to make ourselves a customized intake manifold. The fuel rail and injectors we bought with our end horsepower goal in mind, which we currently set at about 450 to 500. So those are the sort of numbers we want to see in the end, and we need all of those parts to correspond and match our requirements. So that's the situation with that element of the build. Obviously, the wiring for these types of builds always requires a ton of effort. And the only thing we had was a VEMS ECU that supposedly did run the car at some point. However, the sensors are long gone and we don't even know what types of sensors were installed in the first place. So we had to source them one at a time, make sure they had the proper resistance. In the end, after a few days or perhaps even weeks of working on the car, we were finally able to get it to generate a spark. We started by checking for spark, making sure the ECU is monitoring engine rotation, and that the engine is even rotating. Now, after we found spark and made sure the injectors were pulsing, we tried starting the car on ether without any fuel supply. We saw that the engine is trying to fire up, and now the time has come to try starting it on gasoline, to see whether it's even gonna run. Alright, let's give this a try. Right, what have we got? It's all sort of dummied up for the time being. So there aren't too many wires on here. We've got a positive and negative connection on the motor. One cable is going to the starter motor, the other to the engine. Those are powering the ECU, and here we've got a temporary fuel pump. So that's a module plus filter from some kind of Nissan or maybe a Mitsubishi. We've routed a couple of wires. The starter motor connection is simple as can be. Now we don't have an idle air control valve, so I'm going to have to modulate the revs manually. At least you can tell that on this side all of the cylinders are firing. I am very happy with the result. Now, we did fire the engine up before on quick starting liquid with no gasoline, so we were pretty sure that the engine would actually run. The injectors were clicking, but it's still nice to know that it runs so smooth straight away. To me, this feels like an absolute win. Now, we have yet to connect all of the sensors, of course, like I haven't found the temperature sensor yet and a couple of other small things, but at the very least, the engine does work. Now, I don't know anything about the fuel maps programmed into this ECU, but we'll get to that once we start tuning. For now, the main objective would be to break the engine in and let it run at idle for at least half a day. We might even want to get out and do some track driving. Break the engine in under a bit of load. At the very least, I don't hear any knocking noises coming from it. The oil pressure we checked while turning it over without starting it, it's there, so that's good. You know, I'd say we're about halfway there. There's actually a ton of work left to do. We're going to be adding a turbo, and that's going to involve fabricating some headers, among other things. There are a bunch of supporting mods involved, like cooling system, ECU, plus we need to set up an oil cooler. So yeah, there is still a ton of work left to do. Now, as it is, the car, I'd say, is about 300,000 rubles away from being complete. At the very least, we're looking at 200. So that'd be for the turbo and all of the supporting mods to get the turbo up and running. Not to mention the interior is completely empty, as in there are no seats or even pedals currently installed. But the most important bit of news pertaining to this car is that I have no other choice but to sell it. With the reasoning behind my decision being that, I mean, it'd probably be better for me to sell it and compete a full racing season in something else. I still have my Skyline after all, and there might even be some other options for me to consider. Anyway, so better that than to postpone the build for who knows how many more years while I look for the cash to complete it. So yeah, I am selling the car, but the good news is that it's going to stay in the garage, since I'm going to be selling it to my colleague Alexander. And that means that work on the build will continue. And that's where this episode ends. Big thanks for being so patient, thanks for watching, of course. Subscribe to the channel, and new episodes will be coming out very soon. And that's it for this one. See you guys later.